Good evening. Welcome to the opening of the Moon and Reverie, works by Kathy Muehlemann. Can everyone hear me back there? Before we get started, I'd like to thank our members, and if you're not a member, I'd like to invite you to become one. We have these available for everybody in the foyer. You can also go online and join there, but it's incredibly important to us. The support of our members is very important to us and enables us to do what we do here. So thank you if you're a member. We invite you to join if you are not. It's just finding seats. I think we can add some on this side too if we need to. I'm Martha Johnson, Director of the Maier Museum of Art. And I've had the pleasure of knowing Kathy since 2002. And it has been exactly that, a pleasure. As many of you know, Kathy and her husband, Jim, lived and worked as artists in New York City for 20 years during a period distinguished by a particularly rich and intensive community of visual artists in Lower Manhattan. In 1994, Kathy was invited to have a solo exhibition at the Maier Museum of Art at Randolph Women's College to open in the spring of 1995. Subsequently, she was asked to apply for a studio art position. She would teach at RMWC and then Randolph College for 25 years. That first exhibition in 1995, which led the Muehlemann's here, was staged in the same gallery where the Moon and Reverie is now displayed 30 years later. Over the years, I've had a front row seat to Kathy's extraordinary commitment to her students. And I've had the honor of supporting her vision as a knowledgeable and discerning curator for the college's distinguished tradition of annual exhibitions of contemporary American art. She has curated or co-curated some of the most memorable exhibitions in this 114-year-old series. Kathy graduated from State University of New York. Throughout her career, she's had solo exhibitions in various New York galleries, including the Virginia Zabriskie Gallery and the Pamela Auchincloss Gallery. Venues have presented exhibitions of her work throughout the U.S. and abroad in Australia, China, Finland, and Italy. Her work is represented in many important collections, such as the Albright Knox Gallery in Buffalo, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Miami, the Cleveland Museum of Art, and the Phillips Collection in Washington, D.C. She has earned prestigious recognitions, including fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts, a Rome Prize from the American Academy in Rome, and a John Simon Guggenheim Foundation Fellowship Grant. In 2017, she was chosen for the high honor of a Purchase Award from the American Academy of Art and Letters. Accomplished artist, teacher, curator, Kathy's role as friend, colleague, and mentor to so many is what most essentially defines her. Please join me in welcoming Kathy.
Am I on? Can you hear me? And John's gonna get the light.
Yeah.
I want to start with thank yous, because every good talk, every good exhibition should acknowledge all the people that went first one I wanted to thank was Martha Johnson, the director of this museum, who invited me to have an exhibition, and from the get-go, she was right there, helping me, supporting me, suggesting things, and I couldn't think of an easier way to have an exhibition than have someone like Martha at your side. Can you all hear me? The second one is Laura Grace Street. She is a professor of creative writing and English here in the college, and she wrote the beautiful essay in the catalog. She's a wonderful poet, wonderful poet. In fact, last year she came out with a book called Just Labor, and it's one of her many books. But I was honored that when she was so busy with her own work that she would take time to come to the studio and write on my work. And I think if you read her essay, it actually helps you see the work in a way that I'm very pleased with. She and I are also cohorts in Tai Chi with Matt Miller and Marjorie with Barclay and Susan Stevens. Zana is here. So we do things together other than our own studio practice. Chris Cohen, who is on fellowship right now in Paris, lucky guy. He is a professor of studio art here at the college, and he is a wonderful photographer, a wonderful artist himself. And he did all the photographs for the catalog and came back many times to get it just right. And I think you'll see in the catalog how beautiful he represents my work. Catherine McCann, who I have not had the pleasure of meeting, she's the designer of the catalog, which is one of the prettiest catalogs I've had. John Spanish, security guard and preparator, lit and hung my work in the next gallery over, and listened to everything. And at one point I said, John, can we have it a little brighter? And he said, well, it's really so good to have it lower, but the practice is always determined by the artist, so you put the lights up. Kathleen Ford, who is administrative manager, and I think she just kept everything on time. Thank God, because you can think you have all the time in the world, but Kathleen was there to remind me don't, and she's there to help. Laura McManus, curator of education, who will be talking about these exhibitions in this coming semester, but she also helped me, who is a total Luddite with technology, to be able to get works of mine up on the screen. So I thank her for her patience, which I think any good educator should have, but she certainly does. Thank you. Gallery monitor, Melinda Wheeler, another Tai Chi sister, who will be there to take care of all of the work in the museum. And Dewardrick Mack, who is media services technician and help desk analyst, has always been sitting in the back. He is always sitting in the back, and he's always helping all of us to do what we need to do. So thank you. When I thought about this talk, I didn't want it to be a long talk because I think that can get kind of boring. So I thought I would say a few things about my approach to art, and then I'd like to leave time for questions and not have it go longer than a half hour in total. So I'm going to take my watch up so that I can do this. I am used to telling stories. I have so many good colleagues here that can give a really recent lecture with dates and everything. But that's not what this is going to be. So I hope you'll bear with me, and I hope you will ask questions if you have them. The painting, and also I thought, since I should say that when I came down to interview for the job here, and wondering what it was going to be like to move out of Manhattan, I came to the museum and I was amazed at the work that was in this small building. And I came around the corner and there was A Country Girl by Albert Pinkham Ryder, who started me. So, my favorites within the collection have gone back and forth over the years. Right now, I'm currently in love with Morris Graves' In the Night, which is a big black charcoal, a big black bird. And Morris Graves also was an artist that I was curious about because I headed for New York. Jim and I headed for New York as soon as we could, because that was the work we were interested in, and also European art. But someone like Mark Tobey or Morris Graves, artists out in the Northwest in Seattle, they weren't looking so much to Europe the way we were. They were looking to the East, and it's infused in their work, I think. And now, as a studier of Tai Chi and Taoism with my teacher, Matt Miller, that practice and that reading is coming into my work. So, from the back door, the East has become more and more into my work. So I have a few things to show you that are not in the exhibition, but I just thought they might be helpful for you to see. This one is a painting, a small painting called Oracle from 1983, and I was interested in this painting. I was hoping for it to depict a kind of spell, a spell that the moon would be casting upon these little stars, and then another moon in the background, because one moon is good and two is better. and there was a moment when I just thought, it's just not, doesn't have what I'm thinking. And Jim came into the studio and goes, eclipse it. So I did. And it worked. It worked. So, so that's the first little painting. This one is from 1989. It's a painting called Constantinople. And when I had the Rome Prize, we traveled all over Italy whenever we could. And there's a piazza that's by a children's hospital, San Annunziata. But in the piazza, there are two big, they're big stone, but they have bronze plaques. And one of them is this hive of bees. And I became mesmerized by it because I thought, well, I wonder how many bees there are in here. But I couldn't hold it because the pattern of the bees just kept falling apart. And I thought, that's what I want in my work. I want to have a moment of order fighting with disorder, and then a ring of these lights. I wanted them to feel like they were, the energy of that one was pulling this one. I'm sorry, that these lights were setting up a tug, and then above them was this other energy, but also a looking up energy, which I've had since I was a little girl. My childhood was in Austin, Texas, and Texas has a big sky, and I was always aware of the landscape that I was in, because I was always outside, but it was the landscape above me that also gave me a great deal of reverie space. And it was Ruysdael, this Northern European painter who was a big influence on Constable's paintings of the sky. He said, all of the emotions in the painting are in the sky. And I thought, yes, I knew that as a little girl. So looking up, I've always loved stories when I was a child. I mean, the Bible had great stories, even though confusing at times, and fairy tales. But it was when I was an adult that I got intrigued by Greek myth. Andy Cowan, our teacher of Greek myth. And one of the myths I loved was the Garden of the Hesperides. It was the garden of the golden apples, the golden apple that was to be given to the most beautiful woman was given to a woman, and then the Trojan War took over. So this is a painting, small painting again, of two spheres. And again, I wanted a kind of traction to each other within a field, and if the field starts to vibrate. I think about a spider web, and I read recently that the outer rings of a spider web are more sticky, so what flies in, if it touches it, it's caught by that. But the vertical lines are where the spider can run up and down because they're not sticky. But if you watch a spider, the slightest thing, the whole web starts to vibrate, and I wanted a vibratory feel, like a spider. This is a monotype. I printed it and did a number of print campaigns with a man out in California growing Tullis. A monotype, instead of one print, a monotype is just one. So you never know what you're going to get when you lift the paper off of the plate. And that's the fun of it. It's kind of like Christmas. You aim in, but it goes sideways. But sometimes you get one type that you keep, and this is one of them called Emergent Moon. So in the exhibition, you'll see there's a drawing, a graphite drawing. There's also a charcoal drawing, and then there are oil paintings and watercolors. So when I use a medium, I usually like to stick with that medium for a while because you get sensitized to it. So if you jump back and forth between mediums, you're always kind of not quite in touch with what you're using. Now, I had to put this one in. Look at this. And let me name the casket. This is Matt Miller, who's over in the back. I've been studying with him for 22 years, actually. And a grad. She's sitting right here. Living there, I don't know where she is, but she's a singer. Myself, 20 years ago, and Laura Gray, the poet. So I thought that would be fun to see, and the calligraphy, which is very important in China, more important than painting, is by Matt's teacher in China. So when I came down here, I have to say it was hard to be away from art and other artists, and I was casting about, trying to pull together a community, or insert myself in a community. And I found Tai Chi, which was so lucky. But when I went back to New York, this artist, Pat Paslow, we have a big green painting of hers given by the Institute of Arts and Letters. She said a similar thing when she was still in New York. She said when she came into New York, she came in as Willem de Koonin's student, his only student. And so she was thrust into this whole group of artists from all over, from Greece, from Bulgaria, and she said she felt like she was in a Russian novel. She loved it. And then the art world got more and more and more and more formal. And artists also couldn't afford to live in New York as much, so we weren't getting as many artists. And she said she started to look across the street. She lived on Forsyth, and there was a group of Chinese doing Tai Chi. So she started doing Tai Chi with them. And she said, I'm back in my Russian novel. So I think that Matt's Tai Chi has done that for me too. Like that confluence something so strange and beautiful that you want to be part of. And this is a watercolor. It's called Etna. And even though this is an exhibition of the moon, this seems very much moon-like to me, and craters of the moon, and certainly the thing that I love about Taoism and Tai Chi is that there's a dissolve. You build to the edge, and then you dissolve. In Tai Chi, one form, you build to it, and then to get to the next form, you soften, and then it starts to build into the next thing. So this was it started as a demonstration to students of how you can work with watercolor, which is very frightening because you can't erase it. And it's kind of like riding a horse without a bridle, and you just let this water color flood your paper. And so everybody was uptight about it, so I started to show them how you should have fun with this. You should play with this. What could be better than having colored water become a painting? You know, the bell, it didn't ring, but everybody packed up to go to lunch. And I hadn't finished, I hadn't printed it. But when I got to my office, I thought, I think there's a painting in there. And I worked on it. So this came from my students first, and then my own solid. This is a watercolor on a paper called Yupo. Some of you may be familiar with it, but it's actually like a polyvinyl paper. And watercolor always goes into the paper. Yupo, it never goes into the paper. So it sits on top, and it's a lot of fun because you can just erase things with a wipe of tissue. But that is also something I think I will continue with because archivally I think it could be in my view. But it's framed, it's good to go. It may not last as long as the others, but it'll last a while. And this is called Moon Dragon. It is a dragon with an eye, and he's holding a moon, and up there, those lines, that's the tail of the dragon. And again, it's that Taoism way of moving in and out with this great, beautiful energy. This one is called Cloud Dragon. And this and a couple of others is a very odd thing. And Philip Guston, actually I was reading something and he said, sometimes as an artist you aren't prepared for what you've just done. You can't see what you've just done. That was with this painting. I did it and I just put it away and I had it out for some reason and Jim said, it's a really good painting. And all of a sudden I saw it. It wasn't just Jim's words. Jim alerted me to take a look. And so it exists because of Jim. This is in the exhibition too, and this one is called The Night's Conversation because of the two moons back and forth. It's a hard one to photograph. It's even a hard one to see in real life. But if this little painting is anywhere near a window, at a certain point when the sun comes through that window, it just flashes because this is actually silver and it's oil painting. But then I wanted to make that mountain really dark, but I wanted it to have a little bit of the glimmer of silver. And so I just went over it with a very black graphite pencil, number 8B. And this harkens back to my first paintings, which were moons and stars. And I was working in a school. I was the only artist in the school, and everybody else loved children and were for educators like John Holt or Summerhill. And my charges for nap time were 6 months to a year. How do you get 20 babies? So I pulled all the shades down to about 3 inches. I put on Chopin. I discovered Chopin. And I did these drawings of mountains and stars listening to babies breathe. And so for me, that's exactly what mountains, having worked I worked at a ranch in Colorado. And if we got our work done in time, one of the cowboys would drive us up in a pickup truck to Estes Park. And we were under blankets, and so you just saw these stars and mountains. And those were a big influence on me. This little painting lives here in this collection. It's called Bright Promise, and I named it for my students. Because one of the things I loved about teaching was what my students gave me. And you never knew what it was going to be in a day, if they were going to go to town on a painting or if they were going to be upset with a painting. But there was always a brightness, always, when they came through the door into my office. So I wanted to make a painting for them with a moon, or could be a sun, and named Bright Promise, because that's what I consider students to be, our Bright Promise. This one is called Gentle Morning. This is the second painting that Jim said, take a look at it. Because I had it up on a wall waiting to go into it for years. And Jim one day said, I think you really should look at that. And I did. And it's one of my favorites now. But again, it's that dissolve of light up in the sky and this kind of blessing of light on the mountain. Again, that kind of correspondence between the two things. And this little painting is called Moon Jewels. And I put a moon up there, and then I was painting down here, and they look like little jewels. And they reminded me of Odilon Redon. So it's Moon Jewels for Redon. Another favorite artist of mine, French painter. Painted just beautiful, and some quite frightening paintings, and pastels I did. And this is the third and last one I'll show you that I didn't realize that I put its face to the wall. It's called Gentle Moonrise. And I didn't see it. And I was going through my canvases one day, and I pulled it out, and it just welcomed me. And I thought, well, there you are. Because I think when you paint, there's a Pat Pasloff again, the Tai Chi person. She taught for a number of years, and she told her students, the paintbrush is the finger of the brain. And I was telling that to Jenny Lynn McNutt, who had a show down here years ago. And she's having an opening in New York, so we couldn't tonight, so we couldn't be at each other's openings. So I called her, and I told her about that, and she goes, well, yeah, Kathy, but I think of it as the paintbrush is the finger of the heart. And I thought, even better, even better. But I think what both things allude to is a third hand in your work. You don't even know it's happening. You're working, you have an intent, you're responding to something, and this third hand is coming in and giving you a gift. And this one, these are all, many of these are new this year, so, or last year. Anyway, I think this one is called, oh, I know what it is, it's called Night Traveler. And it's a watercolor. A singular moon, and I wanted it to see how much energy, much of a beautiful aurora I could get around this moon. And then down in here, down in the bottom, it just kind of galloped. So I knew that's it. That's it. I didn't have to push it any further. This one you're familiar with if you've got a catalog, it's on the cover. Oh, it's not over there. Okay. There you are. Thank you. It's called Silvered Sea. It has a mountain in it, has a sea and a moon. But when I did it, the thing that really caught me was just this wave, this jump, and then the little lights of it. And it has a real quietness of night. I've always been at home at night. And it's where I am my most open emotionally. So I wanted to bring as much of that quietude into this as I could, even with that little wave jumping. This one is called Moon and Reverie. I was in Rome, and I heard this bell. I had gone down into some catacombs with some of the other fellows at the academy. And we're climbing a ladder back up out of a manhole. You feel like eurydice. And this bell, this old bell nearby, started to hit. And then the moon went out. Bong! Bong! But at the end, all you heard was, and it went right into me. And I thought, I got to do a drawing of that. So, this Chris Cohen did a miraculous job getting this photograph, but you'll also be able to see it better in person because it's a very difficult little work to look at. It's charcoal with a little bit of pastel and white. But what I most wanted to get was this kind of, that bell sound coming out here. And then here, that moon that has fallen down is also reverberating the water. And this one is called The Subtle World. It's a moon, but it's fallen into the world. And what I was very pleased when I did this is the distance. They're really far apart. And part of the distance is up in the right-hand corner, too. It just was able to throw that space back as the moon is dropping its reflection. And I was saying to, I said this earlier, but studying Tai Chi's sword with Matt, the move that we're doing right now is called scooping up the moon from the bottom of the sea. And this painting reminds me of that. This one is called Sister Moon. I have 6 Tai Chi sisters, so I did this thinking that I didn't put 6 of them in there, but that corresponds, and I have a sister, and anybody who has had a sister knows there is an unspoken, not words, communication between sisters. And this one is called Night Passage. There are 3 moons. One at the bottom is behind blackness. This is Karen. Can you say what this is?
It's a 22 feet.
Okay. I call it a moon dog. But Karen knows all about the sky, so I'm so pleased. I saw something like this just about this time last year with my little dog. I had taken him out for the last call. It's a you have dogs in an Concord Memphis. And so you have to wait. And I looked up and there was this huge halo around the moon. It wasn't a halo, it was like a hula hoop around the moon. And I thought, well, I've got to do that. and I call them moon dogs. And so this is the first moon dog painting I did with, in parentheses, tantric, because I have had a lot of interest over the years in this Indian art called tantric art. It's not something you go to school to study. It is, many times it is an incantation. It's not even meant to be seen. It's just an incantation that is visual. And that's what I felt from that moon dog I saw in the sky. And this is blue moon dog. Again, that one has filled out. So it's not just the blue. And brilliant moon dog. That's more like I saw. There's also a poet, philosopher, an eccentric individual in New York called Moon Dog. They used to walk around with a Viking helmet on and a big staff and a robe. So I thought, well, I can call it Moon Dog, but it might make people think of moondogging. And this one is the title comes from Shakespeare, As in a Dream. And that's the most recent one. And this is a work in progress. So it has no title. I'm not sure where it's going to go. And then I ended with my cohort, my love, Jen. We've been artists and married for 56 years. And that's the little our moon dog. It's no longer here, but it was that night. So, and we're in our studio, so I think I had to talk. So if anybody does have a question, I can answer here, I can answer it in the show. But I'm honored to see so many faces right here. Yes, Dordrick.
So, I'm a sunrise person. I like to catch the sunrise over somebody or so. And as you said, you know, if I catch it early, I can get my emotions out and just be in tune with the sunrise. So, what is it about the moon that intrigues you so much?
It's always been with me. I mean, you could say that about the sun, but it's always been like a guardian to me. I can look at the moon and you can't look at the sun.
Right.
I went once out flying falcons, and the falconer said, just don't look at them. You have them on your arm. All you want to do is look at them, but you can't look at them this close because it's a challenge. And so the sun I couldn't look at. I could feel the sun. I don't feel the moon in the same way. You can feel the sun like a little lizard. But the moon, I think at night you're with yourself. Milosh had this wonderful quote, solitude, my mother, tell me my life again. So there's a time of day for me, which is usually at night. And the moon is always there. You know, even if she's not, she's going to be back the next day. Yes.
You bring such big sky into small pieces. Can you talk about the scale you're taking?
Yeah, there's a wonderful artist, Maier Scout, who I was talking with once, many years ago. And he said, size is not scale. Because I was painting things the size of a postage stamp. And I was a little worried about it. I was coming to New York and everybody was painting big. But Myron's work is that size too. And he said, size is not scale. And I thought about it. I thought, when I paint, I think of it as atomic energy. You know, the smaller you make it, the more big it gets. And if I painted something like these paintings, big paintings are great. I love big paintings. But to me, work on that size would be to make it in the room with me. If I make it this big, it can be on Mars. Because it doesn't have to correspond to where I am. I did give a talk. I had an exhibition at the Nelson Atkins Museum, and I had a painting. It was like that big, like 5 by 4 inches. And I was talking, and I had it on the screen. And I turned around, and it was like 8 feet tall. But it helped, and that was important for me. That's scale. If you can take something, if you've built the scale right, you can blow it up.
So you capture the moon in photoceptive view. Have you ever been inspired to capture the moon in other phases, crescents, moon, or is that something that has ever moved you?
Yeah, or actually peekaboo moons, you know, like the emergent where it's coming out from the cloud. I saw a crescent moon the other night, early in the morning actually. And it's quite beautiful. I haven't done that yet, but it's not outside of the realm of what I'd like to do.
All right, so let's go have a drink.